The notice arrived without breath or flourish, a thin column in the official record where power signs itself with deliberate restraint, ink under the Great Seal, becomes a razor that does not tremble. Beneath the Crown Office heading, the words were spare and almost courteous, as if old power were clearing its throat before a closed door. The King has been pleased, by letters patent dated the 3rd of November, to declare that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor shall no longer be entitled to the style of Royal Highness or the dignity of Prince. Another line, equally calm, recorded that by warrant under the Royal Sign Manual, the Duke of York was removed from the roll of the peerage with immediate effect. No ceremony, no curtain, only the Gazette's measured type doing what courtiers cannot say aloud. This is how a dynasty erases a face from its mirrors, not with a shout, but with stationery and discipline, the ritual precision of forgetting. Behind that column sits one of the oldest instruments of rule in Britain, letters patent, open letters that announce the monarch's will to the public. They have created cities, conferred dignities, signified assent, and when the institution calculates the need, rescinded what was once granted. Their force does not come from performance, but from the quiet continuity of prerogative, a constitutional muscle that moves mostly under the skin. When the monarch wishes to narrow a style or extinguish a title, the ink is an ancestor speaking in the present tense. It is routine in its form and radical in its effect, the state's most courteous guillotine. The announcement that entered the record was not merely administrative, it was surgical. A week of palace signalling hardened into law, published for any citizen to read, yet addressed to a much smaller audience, those who measure legitimacy the way bankers measure capital. In reserves, quietly maintained and quietly deployed. The decision followed months of renewed pressure over the former princes' associations, sharpened by the posthumous publication of Virginia Giuffre's memoir and the public's memory of litigation settled without admission of liability. The palace did not argue in court, it calculated in symbols. The sovereign's prerogative, exercised after consultation with officials and supported by government, turned hereditary styling into a conditional asset, marked to market, then written down. Institutional survival demands more than continuity, it demands pruning. In this calculus, the bloodline is a portfolio, and reputations are volatile instruments whose risk must be hedged before they contaminate the whole. The monarchy is not a family in any ordinary sense. It is a corporation of symbolism, with a sovereign as chair and the public as both shareholder and counterparty. When an asset jeopardizes the balance sheet of esteem, the directors reach for an old remedy. They do not forgive. They forget. To understand the severity contained in that small notice, one must examine the tool itself. Letters patent are not drama, they are architecture. Their authority derives from an antique source, the royal prerogative, which endures in a constitutional kingdom as a set of recognitions about where certain powers live. In peacetime Britain, where continuity is a civic religion, prerogative operates most often as an etiquette of decision. The monarch acts on advice, and the advice is embedded in process. Yet the signatures matter. The Great Seal gathers centuries of assent into wax and paper. The Royal Sign Manual, in turn, is the hand of the sovereign, moving across a line that will alter a person's legal and ceremonial life. That dual publication in the Gazette, letters patent to withdraw style, and a warrant to strike a name from the roll of the peerage, is not just punctuation. It is choreography, the old dance of authority and accountability performed in the open and yet understood as a private code among those who keep score. Monarchies have long used such instruments to discipline their own. In the heat of the First World War, George V performed a sweeping act of reputational risk management. He changed the family's public name to Windsor, relinquished German styles and honours, and tightened the pipeline through which the styles of Royal Highness, Prince and Princess could flow. In one stroke, through letters patent and proclamations, he translated public anger into administrative clarity, shedding cousins and cadet branches who had become liabilities by accident of birth and geography. At the same time, Parliament passed the Titles Deprivation Act, a mechanism for surgically cutting away peers who sided with the enemy. A dynasty was shrinking itself to survive. It is a familiar pattern. The instruments are legal, the motive psychological. The house prunes the house. The 20th century offered further refinements. After the abdication crisis, another set of letters patent recognized the former king as Duke of Windsor, while stipulating that his wife would not share his style and any children would not inherit it. The measure was decorous and cold, a reminder that titles are a language that can choose not to speak. The crown was preserving itself by speaking softly and taking away the microphone. These instruments matter because they convert reputational judgment into state fact. They also reveal something about how aristocratic minds manage risk. In the psychology of dynastic self-preservation, affection is subordinate to function. The family romance yields to the institutional narrative. Every title is a promise, and every promise must be credible to strangers. When credibility is damaged, the remedy is not catharsis, but excision. The person remains, but the script that once ran before their name is deleted, and with it, the access routes to precedence, ceremony, and power. The operation is conducted in public because only public erasure has the necessary effect. The present case follows that orthodoxy with almost liturgical precision. First, the palace rehearsed the language of distance, then of withdrawal, then of removal. Now the record is crystalline. The entry states that the former prince no longer enjoys the style of Royal Highness or the titular dignity of prince. He is also removed from the role of peers as Duke of York. The meaning is technical and total. Styles are not souvenirs. They are legal conduits through which the state and society know how to arrange themselves around a person. Close the conduit, and the traffic stops. Consider how the notice also touches property and residence. Royal Lodge, that long leasehold of rooms and lawns and memory, now becomes less a home than a line item in a settlement between institution and individual. A medal for service during the Falklands conflict remains, because military service carries its own morality, stubbornly detached from the currency of style. Yet the larger point is economic in an abstract sense. The crown's symbolic capital is protected by divesting an underperforming line. The board reduces exposure. The share price of legitimacy is stabilized. No monarchy is alone in this logic. Napoleon's imperial household learned it in exile, dispersed and diminished once the single animating figure was removed from the stage. Some were assigned foreign cities, some were watched, many were written out. The Bonaparte experiment understood, too late, that family glamour decays quickly when the central claim is no longer tenable. That lesson echoes across courts and capitals. When authority is inherited, survival depends on controlling what the inheritance appears to mean. The British version has always preferred balance sheet discipline to theatrical vengeance. The mechanism is administrative, the tone educated. In 1917, a king narrowed the definition of who could stand under the umbrella of highness. In 1937, another defined a duke's household down to the limits of its reflection, allowing one man a continued style while refusing it to his wife and theoretical children. In 2025, a notice the length of a paragraph slices through a birthright. The chain is unbroken. The practice has become a craft. There is, too, a contemporary dimension to the tactic. The monarchy's greatest vulnerability is not law, but sentiment. It trades in the public's willingness to be charmed by continuity. Scandal corrodes that willingness faster than any budget line can repair. By acting through letters patent and the Gazette, the Crown is not merely punishing a relative, it is communicating to the market of opinion that it still possesses the nerve to amputate. The The message is conservative and modern at once. Titles are reclassified as contingent privileges. Birth is not a guarantee. Participation requires reputational solvency, measured continually against the institution's tolerance for risk. This policy of forgetting has its own etiquette. It does not shout. It does not stage a purge. It invites a reader to the public record, where the knife has already fallen and the blood has already been cleaned away. In that sense, the Gazette is both an archive and a theatre, showing only the final act. The audience receives the result, not the rehearsal. Those who understand the code recognize the severity beneath the courtesy. Those who do not simply notice a name becoming thinner on the page. One might ask whether honor and legitimacy can be rebuilt after such an excision. The institution has an answer, and it is categorical. Honor belongs to the corporate body of the Crown more than to its individual members. The Crown can preserve honor by sacrificing prestige attached to a person. The ledger of legitimacy demands that the particular be spent to conserve the general. It is a grim arithmetic handed down through wars, abdications, and domestic storms. George V discarded proximity to Germany when public appetite required it. A later sovereign disciplined the echo of abdication by narrowing styles. Now, in an age that surveils its elites with forensic appetite, another sovereign converts a familial crisis into a bureaucratic remedy. The pattern does not change, only the precipitating causes do. For those who see monarchy as a sentimental pageant, this will seem cruel. For those who study institutions, it is maintenance. Traditions endure because they possess tools for subtraction as well as addition. The British monarchy has perfected the ability to withdraw visibility, a kind of civil death administered by law and posted like a tide chart. It is not annihilation. It is a permanent wintering of a branch that once bore fruit. The postscript of residence and medals and private arrangements belongs to journalism. The constitutional interest lies in the reassertion of something older and more abstract. The idea that birthright is a promise the Crown makes to the public, not a promise the public makes to any child of the Crown. When that promise imperils the trust, the bond is called, and the guarantor pays, by removing the guarantee itself. The result is a quieter court, a tidier ledger, a message restored to clarity. In time, the particulars will fade. The line in the Gazette will remain, a thin mark that future researchers will read with the slight chill that accompanies all official speech from a sovereign body. They will see the date and the formula and the careful diction, and they will understand that a modern dynasty kept faith with its oldest instinct. This is the instinct that built houses, wrote constitutions, endowed regiments and chapels, and survived the age of newspapers, the age of radio, the age of cameras, the age of networks. It protects itself by withdrawing recognition from the unrecognizable. If there is tragedy here, it is private and cannot be measured. If there is instruction, it is public and easily read. Monarchies endure not because they forgive, but because they know how to forget in ways the law can acknowledge. Erasure is their cold mercy. In the hush of the Crown Office page, where capital letters honour no one, a sovereign duty is performed, a style is lifted from a life, a title is unpinned from a name, the institution breathes, and the record closes over the absence, like water returning to stillness. For those who study old money, the lesson is austere. Wealth that pretends to be eternal must continuously deserve to be believed. When the belief is threatened, the correction is precise and public. A dynasty that wishes to live for another century learns to prune without hesitation and to publish the pruning in the same breath. In Britain, this discipline has a familiar texture: vellum, seals, the Gazette's unruffled tone, and a sovereign's hand exercised through instruments older than anyone living. The names change. The grammar does not. Today's column in the public record will be read as a humiliation by some and as justice by others. The monarchy reads it as maintenance, An expensive institution protecting the only asset it cannot buy again once lost. Not love, not lineage, legitimacy. And legitimacy, in these houses, is defended by a perfection of forgetting.